Well, a 34-year-old tech professional was found hanging in his home in Bengaluru. Atul Subhash, who specialized in artificial intelligence, left behind a 24-page suicide note and a 90-minute video that how he was tortured. And this video has gone viral. He has blamed his wife and her family for harassment. He claimed that his wife demanded rupees 3 crore alimony and that she did not let him see his child. Atul also blamed the legal system, branding it biased, and has made a serious charge against a judge in Jaunpur. He has accused the judge of demanding rupees 5 lakh and stated he refused to pay the money and rather chose death. Amid furor over his death, NewsX has accessed the full case file of his wife's complaint. When she filed her FIR, under what sections the FIR has been filed and what all claims she has made against Atul Subhash. Let's take a look at his wife's full case and the first information report that was filed on the 24th of April in 2022. This was in Kotwali Police Station, Jaunpur district. The accused, Atul Subhash Modi, husband, and Anju Devi, mother-in-law, Pavan Modi, father-in-law, and Vikas Modi, brother-in-law, were all in fact in the charge sheet. The marriage date was 25th April 2019 and the location was Hotel Hindustan International, Banaras, Uttar Pradesh. The claims were, of course, number one, gifts given during marriage, rupees 10 lakh worth of gold and silver jewelry is what was given, is what she claims. 5 lakh rupees in cash, utensils, clothes and household items. Number two, she lived with her husband and in-laws after marriage, and husband and in-laws were not satisfied with the items received at the wedding, and the in-laws started demanding a dowry of 10 lakh rupees. And number five, the in-laws began subjecting her to physical and mental harassment. And number six, the in-laws subjected her to acts of violence for dowry. She informed her family about the harassment and dowry demands from in-laws. And number eight, her family advised her to endure the situation. And number nine, the husband consumed alcohol and started physically assaulting her. And the husband would transfer her entire salary from her account to his by instilling fear. And on the 16th of August 2019, her in-laws went to her maternal home in Jaunpur and demanded rupees 10 lakh dowry. An FIR was filed under section 498A under the IPC 1860, and the punishment for which is imprisonment for up to 3 years and a fine for subjecting a married woman to cruelty. And the FIR was filed under section 323 in the IPC 1860. And the punishment for this is up to a year in prison and a fine, which of course constitutes to voluntarily causing hurt. And the FIR was filed under section 504 in the IPC, and the punishment for which is up to 2 years and a fine for intentional insult intended to provoke breach of peace. And another section 506 was also filed, for which there is imprisonment of up to 2 years. So a number of sections, a number of charges that were levied against this particular gentleman who committed suicide, but obviously his account of this entire saga was completely different. We'll talk about this with our guest, Mr. Ram Saran Verma, former IAS and Joint Secretary, UPSC, joins us on the show. Mr. Ellen Rao, former DCP, Special Cell, Delhi Police, is also joining us on the broadcast. Last but by no means the least, Mr. Ashwini Dubey, Advocate on Record, Supreme Court, also joins us on the program. Ashwini, I'll begin with you. Perhaps, a problem which has been around for many a decades but has been slipped under the carpet. Many men have in fact been accused and tied down and put cases upon under the law, which is intended to protect women but is doing the exact opposite. It is creating a space, it is creating an environment, Ashwini, whereby even a verbal discord between a wife and a husband can constitute to sections and criminalities which any man would dread. And that's exactly what has happened in this case as well. This particular gentleman was subjected to a case for which he had to travel to Jaunpur from Bangalore time and again. He was not allowed to see his child, and whatever he was accused of, Ashwini, was not even proven. So he was in fact pronounced guilty before a case could be completed. And secondly, he's also implicated the judge in this case, Ashwini, which makes this matter a lot more serious. What's your take on this?
Vinit bhai, very rightly you have said that all the three aspects. One, that the law is being abused and misused by the women most of the women, and that is being used as a tool to extort money by implicating innocent parents of the husband, relatives. Two, the allegations against the judge must be looked into, must be investigated upon by the higher judiciary. And three, Vinit Bhai, when this law was brought, that was brought in order to give protection to the women in 1983. 498A was introduced in the Indian Penal Code. But over the time period, Beneath Bhai, this law has been started being misused by the women in order to succeed their in evil designs. And not only the women, if we see the prosecuting agencies also under the garb of giving justice to the women used to falsely harass the parents of the husband or the relatives, distant relatives who even are not concerned with day-to-day affairs. And very rightly, very candidly, you say even uttering a word, it would attract 498A, which would constitute the implication of Section 498A for cruelty. The whole premise of Section 498A was brought to protect women from being exploited, harassed, abused physically or mentally. But now, Vinit Bhai, there are several instances where this regulation has become a scourge in men in society. The time has come where there is need for the general neutral law. You remember, Vinit Bhai, in 2014, there was a landmark judgment. My lawyer friend, Mr. Rao, would agree to it, that there was a judgment in 2014 in Aranesh Kumar, when Supreme Court let down certain guidelines that, look, हर किसी को आप नहीं फंसा सकते. Some relative is in Mumbai, cases happened in Delhi. You can't implicate that person कि फोन पर उन्होंने मुझे torture किया. Number two, parents who are not living with the husband and wife, then they should also not be implicated. If implicated, a FIR is registered, then there has to be a investigation report, and on the basis of that only, those people will be arrested. Now, three, the Supreme Court said that everyone whosoever says that the relatives have harassed, their name will not be written by the police officials. So some respite relief was given, but the draconian law still existed. And remember, Vinit Bhai, recently, Justice V.V. Nagaratna, the Honorable Supreme Court Judge in Dara Lakshmi's case, have categorically says that 498A is being misused. How many people have lost their life? See, this Atul Subhash, by writing this note, has highlighted one of the instances, whether this instance to the instance. And Vinit Bhai, for last 2 decades, I am in practice and I have seen the way it is being harassed. And what happened when 498 was little bit bail rules were relaxed, then they started implicating an unnatural sex cases. That mother and father asked husband to do unnatural sex with me. So those cases are also being implemented. So now Vinit Bhai need to have a legal reforms in the law, that without the following investigation, those cases will not be registered. In 1983, we may understand the situation was very worse, and Shah Bano's case has also came in 1985. That time situation was different, but 2014 women have been the more empowered, and now under the garb of right to equality, under the garb of getting justice, अब यही समाज में जाने लगा कि only women are being victimized. That is somehow, Vinit Bhai, was grossly abused and misused. So the purpose of law is to protect women from atrocities, but not purpose of law to abuse and misuse, to extort money and implicate falsely, what has happened in the case of Atul Subhash, Vinit Bhai. So now this is an abatement of suicide case. So it's an individual case, but it started the wide range debates. So I think that the parliamentarian must look into this and pass a general neutral law to have a balanced society. Over to you.
Mr. Rao, do you think this is a misuse of a law which perhaps needs, desperate and definite reforms, considering the fact that a man had to commit suicide to get our attention on how badly he was being treated, perhaps by his wife and his in-laws, but also by the system? The system is here. The system has been erected by taxpayers to facilitate a citizen, not to harass them, not to hurt them, not to incriminate them, and end up the way this gentleman did.
Yes, good evening, Vinit, to all your viewers and the co-panelists. And really, it's since yesterday when I'm at so many channels, it's a very serious incident which led to a life of a very approving and efficient person or in an IT professional. And I cannot imagine how much courage he might have mustered to commit suicide because of the system and circumstances. Let me take you to the previous history of 498, this domestic violence, which was incorporated in IPC in 498 section only. But it was when it was seen that the women are being harassed by the married women are being harassed by the in-laws and the husband. Then there was an amendment in 1983 when this 498A section was inserted in that. And in that case, initially it was a very harsh section, very harsh. Immediately after registration of this case, the husband, parents, and other relatives were sent to jail. And after that, the courts came to know that it is being misused. At that time, after that, there's some relaxation was there, and only at that time when the parents were not arrested, and only husband, if it is there are serious allegations came in, then he used to be arrested. But after that, in Ernest Kumar judgment in 2000. Ernest Kumar versus State of Bihar in 2013, the Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court, laid down certain guidelines, as Mr. Dubey has explained, without giving notice, that 41A CRPC notice, without giving that notice, the police officer cannot arrest a person, particularly in 498A IPC cases, and not only in this such type of cases, but in other cases where the maximum punishment is 7 years. In all those cases, the police officer has to look into the merit of the case and on the basis of the evidence. And after issuing 498, 441A CRPC notice, then only he can, if he thinks that without arrest that investigation cannot be complete, only then he can be arrested. But in this case, I think that a number of cases were against this Atul Subhash, and he was really frustrated, more particularly because of the jurisdiction, because he was living in Bangalore and coming to Jaunpur so many times. It takes much of time. He has to take his leave, and that's why he might have been frustrated because of that. But I will definitely, one more thing I will say to your viewers, that this is not the solution of the problem. If there was some problem, that could have been mediated, that could have been resolved by counseling and everything, that some person should have been cautioned him, and this committing suicide is not the situation, not the only solution, but he should have taken all these things but boldly, but unfortunately it could not. It also speaks that his 24 pages suicide note and the video which has been circulated in the media, and that speaks so many other things also. It gives a very bad name to our system, particularly in judicial system, if these allegations are true. No doubt these allegations will be investigated, because the case has been registered under section 108 BNS, and earlier it was 306, that is abetment to commit suicide, and the investigation is going on. And after doing all the investigation, what are the allegations? These are to be investigated, and if these are found correct, even against any other person, those action will be taken in this matter, and that the people of our country should know what will be the outcome of this case. Over to you.
Mr. Verma, what are your thoughts on what's going on over here? Is this basically exposing a big lapse in the system? It is also putting under the spotlight what exactly is going wrong when it comes to a number of these fake and spurious cases.
Appreciate Mr. Ashwani Dubey, advocate on record, and I agree with him. And I will say that 80% of the cases are false, and they are motivated to extract money and torture the husband in some way. You see, in the even if this point is left, even if we believe that law is okay, even then, what the judge was doing there, this Atul has written in his suicide note that Judge Peshkar was taking bribe before judge, and judge was laughing when the lady said to this Atul that why don't you suicide? So this is the manner how the court dealt it. The first thing is this, that no doubt there is hanky-panky in the law, and there is very big hole which creates a balance in favor of a woman in divorce type cases and this torture cases and dowry cases. But still, even then, what the judge was doing there, judge was laughing when the woman said that you why don't you pay 3 crore rupees to her? If you can't pay, you should suicide. Judge was laughing. This is on record on the newspapers. Secondly, the lady accused father, mother, and brother of Atul also party, who were living in Bihar, Samastipur, whereas Atul was living in Bengaluru, and the lady went only for one day to her in-laws' house in Samastipur. This is the fact which is reported in papers. I don't know what is how much correct, but what is reported in newspapers is can be seen. Secondly, I will also add that it took 3 years. Actually, the lady left living with her husband after 8 months of marriage, and their marriage was held on 26th April 2019, and the divorce case and the complaint against 9 complaints were filed against Atul in 2022. So 2019 to 2022, it took quite some time, and during that time they both were separate. And how the harassment could have been done? And again, the next thing I would say that she said that that he used to beat me, he used to drink, but he transferred the money, her salary in his account. Whether she put up any record in the court to prove it, still the judge is saying, why don't you compromise and give her 3 crore rupees? And the lady said that you should suicide. Even the mother-in-law said, I thought that you have suicided. I would have seen this report in the newspaper. You see the height of torture.
You're absolutely
Atul,
right, sir. But Ashwini, this also raises, the question that how complicit is the legal community when it comes to putting up these false cases? How complicit are lawyers who in fact inflate the complete quantum of the crime or the alleged crime in these affidavits and these FIRs to seek justice? In fact, in the pursuit of justice, if I can say this, Ashwini, they are committing grave injustice, not only to the profession of being a lawyer, but also to the entire constitution, which is slated to protect every individual. And of course, when you look at these demands, Ashwini, for 3 crore rupees, for 4 crore rupees, they seem to be very, very unrealistic. The kind of pressure they will put on the person who's defending himself is enormous.
That is why.
Ashwini, that question is for Ashwini, sir. That question is for Ashwini. Ashwini.
That is why I am saying.
That question is for Ashwini, sir. That question is for Ashwini, sir. Ashwini.
We take oath to allegiance to the constitution does not mean that morality will not prevail over the professionalism. We are professional, but we owe a duty to at least help those who are deprived, who are falsely implicated. And what is happening, Vinit Bhai, let me concede it in front of you, Vinit Bhai, that now package is being given by some of the people from our
थोड़ी
fraternity.
देर में करता हूँ मैं
498A, 406, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence, Section 125 CRPC, and Section 24 Hindu Marriage Act. Number of petitions are being filed. And day-to-day life, we have seen, Vinit Bhai, the false and vague allegations against husband and their family members have become a new normal. As per NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau 2020 data, Vinit Bhai, total 1,11,549 cases were registered, out of which around 10,000 were considered as false. 16,000 were closed due to mistake or false facts of law. Just understand the statistics. Insufficient evidence, mistake, and rest are going on, still not proved. And the Supreme Court's concern on legal misuse has also time and again come. Now, there are reports of Malimat Committee. Malimat Committee says that a police officer does not directly verify. Police officer, the moment a complaint reaches to the police institution, police is duty bound to register the FIR. Police has to take an action, but our lawmakers, who should have been there to make certain balanced law, considering the right to equality, which is intrinsic part of the constitution, which is basic feature of the constitution, which does not discriminate between women and women, women and men, but those have been ignored. Those have been found misplaced in judgments. You see, Vinit Bhai, special courts were constituted, family courts were constituted, and even judges, honorable judges are also saying कि भाई इसको खत्म करो, कितना दे रहे हो, one time settlement बोलो. These things are not recorded anywhere under the name of giving permanent alimony. You cannot ignore that the male has to meet out certain other obligations. He has an obligation towards the mother, father. Now what is happening? माँ बाप को छोड़ दो. This is what the society we were talking about. This is how making empowered to the women, we are breaking the society. Need is to have a reform. Misuse of a court process and wasting of time of the court, instituting wrongful, malicious prosecution, giving miscarriage of justice must be looked into strictly. And if suppose tomorrow that complaints comes out to be false, there is no remedial law. Women is scot-free. They go. Even in the rape laws, Vinit Bhai, if sometime there is a consensual relationship and the court comes to the conclusion that was purely consensual, FIR is not made out. So the harassment which a person gets, there is no remedy to that. Only remedy is जाइए आप defamation का case file करिए. If there is a mechanism, Vinit Bhai, and which says if you will institute a false case, and it comes to the
and Ashwini, if I remember correctly, in the 80s and the 90s, there were numerous cases of dowry. There were numerous cases of women being burnt, and that's exactly when the system strengthened up. That's exactly when there was this sense that was cultivated that dowry is a big nuisance. Do you think that we have not moved away from the laws and that awareness that was brought about in 80s and 90s, because times have changed now?
Yes, Vinit Bhai, more than 40 years has passed. The situation, yes, I do agree. That time situation was vulnerable. Women were being subjected for cruelty. Dowry demand was on peak. That is why this legislation was brought. But later on in 2024, and what the law requires, law is a reformative action. Law has to progress as the society progresses, Vinit Bhai. And that is how in 2024, if we see, when our women are leading from front on the borders, becoming scientists, becoming engineers, becoming judges, becoming journalists. So now they are empowered, and empowerment does not mean that the law which was existed 40 years old, 40 years law, that will still exist. Colonial, we have also gone away from colonial laws. Now need to have a balanced law. That time I do agree. Now also cases are happening. Nobody denies. Ram Saranji or Raoji also does not deny that there are women are being victimized. But those who are victimized does not reach to the court, Vinit Bhai. They don't have opportunity or money to go to hire the lawyers like us, and also police does not register their cases. So real victims not getting justice, but the pseudo victims, they are in fact attacking their husbands and family members just to extort money. So this has to stop somewhere. There has to be.
Ashwini, just 1 second. In fact, I'm going to go over to the big screen and try and tell you what exactly transpired in this case. What were the facts of the matter? What were the ground realities? And on what pretext this entire case was constructed and orchestrated? Of course, the 24th of April 2022, a year and a half ago, is when this case was first filed. and the Kotwali police station in Jaunpur district was the location where the entire case in fact started. And of course, the 4 people who were accused were of course the husband Atul Subhash, who is no more, who committed suicide. You have Anju Devi, the mother-in-law, Pavan Modi, the father-in-law, and Vikas Modi, the brother-in-law. All in fact were made co-conspirators and accused in this particular FIR. In 2019, 26th of April, wife's full case file was in fact put out, and this was in Hotel Hindustan International in Banaras in Uttar Pradesh as well. In fact, they said that there were gifts given during marriage which accounted to over 10 lakh rupees, and it also included gold and silver jewelry. There were 5 lakh rupees which were given in cash, utensils, clothes, household items, etc., which of course are a part of dowry and a custom in a lot of these tier 2 and tier 3 cities. In fact, the wife also said that she lived with her husband and in-laws after marriage, where she was tortured. She was in fact forced to bring in more dowry. The husband and in-laws were not satisfied with the items that they had received, which in fact we just showed you in the previous slide, and they wanted more. If you can in fact go through the entire detail of the case, you will be able to see what exactly were the charges that were being pressed upon by the wife here. And this is nothing new. The in-laws started demanding dowry of 10 lakh rupees is what was alleged in this case. And a lot of times, like we discussed with our guest as well, all these charges are fake. Some of them are in fact just put into this particular FIR or the case file to in fact extract as much as money as possible, to intimidate the victim as much as possible. The in-laws were subjected her to acts of violence for dowry is what also was said in this particular case file, and this is something which the husband completely refuted. The media, and of course we also spoke to the mother, the father, the brother as well, and they all refuted. There was nothing of that sort. It was an uneven relationship since the time it began, and the wife informed her family about the harassment and dowry demands from in-laws, and that is when they asked her to come back and move back with her, where in fact she started this whole case and started asking for alimony as well as maintenance, and of course those 3 crore rupees as well. Her family advised her to endure the situation for some time, as a lot of parents do. They don't want the couple to in fact separate from each other. The husband consumed alcohol and started physically assaulting her. This is also something which is often found in these FIRs and these case files as well. The husband would transfer her entire savings and salary from her account to his by instilling fear, is also something that was alleged in this particular case file. So these were all the claims. None of this has been proven so far. The husband, of course, in that 90-minute video refuted all these charges. On 16th August 2019, her in-laws went to her maternal home in Jaunpur and demanded 10 lakh rupees dowry, is also something which has been put into this case file. The in-laws threatened divorce if the amount was not paid. Her father was disturbed by the harassment and also fell ill, was mentioned in this file. The father passed away on 17th August 2019 due to the stress of the dowry demands, is something which has been put in the case file as well. No medical history has been given. Based on assurances from the husband, he took her to Bengaluru, where they stayed on for some time, and on the 17th of May 2021 at around 9 a.m. the husband physically assaulted her in front of her mother, demanding dowry once again. This is of course the complete trajectory of how the case progressed, or rather worsened. The husband confiscated all her jewelry, her clothes, her fixed deposits, her documents, the Stridhan, and threw her out of the house, is what has been alleged in this case file so far. He also threatened that if she returned without 10 lakh rupees, she would have to pay with her life. And these are some serious and aggressive charges which were made by the wife, which the husband of course refuted. After being persuaded, she went to Bengaluru on the 24th of September 2021, and as soon as her husband saw her mother, he began verbally abusing them both, is what is alleged. Her mother filed a complaint with the police, and the police retrieved her clothes and documents as well. Her husband refused to return her Stridhan and jewelry, is also something that was denied by Atul in that video. She returned home to her mother and son and decided to take legal action somewhere in 2022. And the FIR, which has been filed under the IPC, the punishment is for 498A. The punishment, of course, imprisonment for up to 3 years and a fine subjecting to a married woman to cruelty is 3 years. Of course, there are a number of other charges also which have been filed against the husband, and this is not all. There is also 323, there's 504 and 506 and section 3 and 4, and up to a year imprisonment and a fine for voluntarily causing hurt under section 323 has also been filed. Section 504, imprisonment for up to 2 years, a fine for intentional insult intended to provoke breach of the peace is also something which was put up again. So all in all, a number of sections taking a chance, casting a wide net that somewhere the courts will in fact relent and put pressure on the husband to do as he's being asked to. Imprisonment for up to 2 years, a fine of criminal intimidation under IPC section 506. We move on to 3 and 4, which is punishment of 5 years and a fine of rupees 15,000, more stringent punishment there, and this is section 3, which is Dowry Prohibition Act 1961. And of course, the last section is a minimum of 3 months and a maximum of 2 years in prison and a fine of up to rupees 10,000. And this is once again under the Dowry Prohibition Act of 1961. So these are the fact of the cases, and this is exactly what the chronology of this entire case looks like. We've run out of time, but I would like to thank all my guests who joined us. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.